Hello everybody, I'm back, and today we're going to be going into section 7 of chapter 0. We're going to be comparing and ordering decimals today. We have two learning goals. As you can see in the first learning goal, it says I can compare decimal amounts by using a number line. And we'll look at one example like that today, but we should be able to compare decimal amounts when they are shown on a number line. And secondly, I can compare and order decimals by using place value. And most of the examples that we do today will be doing exactly that, using place value, lining up the decimal points and comparing them to see, well, which one's larger, which one's smaller, and how we would order them. Okay, so this might look familiar to you from yesterday, but here's that same sign showing prices at the gas station. And it says the price of a gallon of gasoline, of regular gasoline, is 3.989. And it's kind of weird because we don't think of money as showing more than two places past the decimal point. And actually, if you look in the sign here, you can see it's kind of a little game that they like to play to make the gas prices look lower than they really are. It looks like it's $3.98, but then they have this extra 9/10 after that. And what they're really doing is they're showing the thousandths place here. And so it actually is $3.989 per gallon, or 3 989 thousandths of a dollar per gallon. So what is this to the nearest penny? When we round things to the nearest penny, we're rounding to the nearest hundredth, which is two places past the decimal point. We want to round to this place right here. So in effect, we're going to chop things off right here. So is it $3.98? Well, you may know from rounding with whole numbers, we need to move over to the next digit, the one immediately to the right of the 8 in this case. And we have a 9 there. And there's a little expression, I can never remember how it goes, but I know it starts out 5 or more, let it soar. 4 or less, well, I don't know what we do with that. 4 or less, give it a rest. I don't know. But since this is a 9 here in the thousandths place, that's 5 or more. So what we're going to do is take the 8 here in the hundredths place and round that up to a 9. So this would round up to $3.99 per gallon of regular gasoline. Okay, so even though it looks like it's $3.98 a gallon, it's really much, much closer to $3.99 per gallon. So we rounded that to the nearest hundredth, which is the same thing as rounding to the nearest penny. Okay, so rounding decimals, it's just like rounding whole numbers. We always want to look at the next place to the right to determine how we will round the digit that is in the place we're rounding it to. So here it says 0.32. That's 32 hundredths if I read it correctly. We have a 3 that's in the tenths place. We have a 2 that's in the hundredths place. If we round this to the nearest tenth, it would be 0.3. Okay? And again, what we're doing here is we're looking in the tenths place at the 3. To the right of that, we have a 2 in the hundredths place. If it's 5 or more, let it soar. If it's 4 or less, give it a rest. So we're going to give it a rest. We're going to leave the 3 as is. So when we cut it off after the tenths place, it would be closer to 0.3 than it would be to 0.4. And I'll show you what this looks like on a number line in a little bit too. Okay, this time I want to round 426 thousandths to the nearest hundredth. So our first question is, what digit is in the hundredths place? And take a look here and we can see the 2 is in the hundredths place. And so we're going to round to the hundredths place. We're going to cut it off 2 places past the decimal point. To the right of that, in the thousandths place, we have a 6. Now, is that large enough to make us round the 2 up to a 3? In other words, is it closer to 0.430 than it is to 0.420? And it is. It's 5 or more, so we're going to let it soar. So to the nearest hundredth, this would be 0.4 3. So the 2 becomes a 3. And the other thing that I want to point out here is when we round to the nearest hundredth, we will not show any digits past the hundredths place or to the right of the hundredths place. So sometimes people would put 0.430, but we don't want that 0 at the end because we're rounding to the nearest hundredth. We only want to show through the hundredths place or 2 places past the decimal point. All right, so here I want to round each decimal to the underlined place. I look at this first example, and we have a 4 here that's underlined. What place is it in? It is the second place to the right of the decimal point, so it's in the hundredths place. So if I round to the nearest hundredth, I have to look in the thousandths place, and I see I have a 2 right here. And since it isn't 5 or more, then we're not going to let it soar. The 4 is going to stay a 4, and so to the nearest hundredth, this is 2.34. And there I have successfully rounded to that place. All right, in the next example, we have the 4 that's underlined here again, but now which place is it in? We're in the tenths, hundredths, thousandths. We're in the 10,000ths place. So we're going to round to the nearest 10,000th. So we're going to cut her off right here. To the right of the 4, I see a 7. That's 5 or more, so we're going to let it soar, which means the 4 will become a 5. So I have 0.1735. Notice I'm showing every one of these digits all the way up through the 10,000ths place where we had the 4 that was underlined. Okay, so this is rounded to the nearest 10,000. One more on this page. I have 9.053, and we're going to round to the nearest tenth. In the tenths place, I have a 0. To the right of that is a 5. And 5 or more, let it soar. So when I round to the nearest tenth, this becomes 9.1. Okay, so just a quick question. What if it had been 9. Here, I'm going to add a page here. What if it had been 9.049 and the 0 had been underlined, meaning I want to round to the nearest tenth? So I'm cutting it off right here. If I'm rounding this to the nearest tenth, to the right here in the hundredths place is a 4. And remember, 4 or less, give it a rest, right? So we're not going to be rounding the 0 up to a 1. So if I'm rounding to the nearest tenth, I have 9.0. Do I need to show the 0.0, or can I just write 9? Would that be the same thing? Since I'm asked to round to the nearest tenth, I need to show the tenths place. So I do want to show 9.0. If all I showed was 9, then a person would think, oh, you rounded to the nearest whole number. But I want to show, no, this is precise to the nearest tenth. And to the nearest tenth, it's 9.0. So yeah, we do want to show 0.0 in that situation. All right, so now I want to compare decimals, and I'm going to use either greater than or less than. We do have another option, which is equal, but in this example, they will not be equal. How do these compare? Is 4/10 greater than or is it less than 36/100? Now, we have to be careful because sometimes students will tell me, well, 36 is bigger than 4, so they think it's going to be less than. The problem is, though, there's a mistake in the thinking on that. If I want to compare these, what I need to do is rewrite them and line them up. 0.4, I'll just write that down here. Could I have written that any more sloppily? Probably not. So I'm going to get rid of that and rewrite it here. See if I can do a little better this time. 0.4. Underneath that, I'll write the other number, 0.36. Now, what's critical here is that I want to line up these decimal points. Okay, so all of my places are aligned correctly. We have a 4 in the tenths place here. We have a 3 in the tenths place here, and those are lined up. The decimal points are lined up. The zeros in the ones place or the units place are lined up. In order to compare these, I'm noticing I don't have a digit in the hundredths place in this first number. So I'm going to put a 0 there. 0.4, 4/10, has the same value as 40 hundredths. Okay? And now that I've shown that, you'll see we're not comparing 36 to 4. We're comparing 36 with 40. And 40 is larger than 36. So I can see 0.4 is bigger than 0.36. Okay? Now, I think sometimes it's easier when comparing decimals just to compare going from left to right. So starting in the ones place here, we have a 0 and a 0. They're both the same, so I can't decide which is larger. So then I move over to the tenths place. Here I have a 4, here I have a 3. Oh, 4 is larger than 3. So that tells me this first decimal value is greater than the second decimal value. Okay, so it is greater than. 0.4, 4/10 is greater than 0.36. All right, now here we have that example with the number line. 0.4 is greater than 0.36. Remember, 0.4 is really the same thing as 0.40. And so when you look at this, I have 0.30 right here, and I have 0.40 way over here. And I have filled in everything in between, 31 hundredths, 32 hundredths, all the way up 39 hundredths, and then 40 hundredths. And you can see 0.4 is way over here. 0.36 is back here. So 0.36 is less than 0.40, and 0.40 is greater than 0.36. So you can see it on a number line as well. All right, I'm already at 12 minutes, so I have to hurry. I only get 15 minutes for these videos. All right, so how does 0.59 compare with 0.6, or 59 hundredths to 6/10? If you go left to right, the ones places are the same. So I move to the tenths places. 5 is less than 6. And if you're thinking, wait, isn't 59 bigger than 6? Well, it is. But remember, this is really 0.60, and 59 is less than 60. 3.18 compared with 3.8. Let's add a 0 so both numbers are showing through the hundredths place, 2 places into the decimals. And now 3 and 3 are the same. Go to the tenths place. 1, 8. Ooh, 1 is less than 8, so we have less than. Also, 18 is less than 80. And over here, 0.56. The zeros are the same in the ones place. The 5s are the same in the tenths place. In the hundredths place, I have a 6 here, and I have a 4 here. 6 is greater than 4. And so I have 0.56. And again, if you lined these up, and underneath it, 0.543, lining up the decimal points, I'd want to add a 0 right here. And then you can see, if you look at this as what it is to the nearest thousandth, we have 560 thousandths, which is greater than 543 thousandths. And so you can see, yeah, 0.56 is the bigger one. Okay? Now, if you want to order several decimals, you can do it again the same way. Let's just go place by place, left to right. In the ones place, they all have 0 in them. So then I go to the right of the decimal point to the tenths place. I have a 0, a 2, a 0, a 0. This 2 here is bigger than all the others. The dead C, 0.28, I'm going to put over here. That's my greatest. Okay, I'm going to list these from least to most salty, from least to greatest. So I know this one's the most salty. Now the others all had 0 in the tenths place, so I go to the hundredths place. Here's a 3, here's a 1, and here's a 1. So this 3 would be the next largest one. So 0.032 goes here, and it's less than 0.28. So we have the Arctic Ocean, and then the other ones both have